Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. I am excited to sit down and talk with you guys today. I hope you guys had a good week and all the things. Christmas is right around the corner, which is going to be so fun. I'm so excited for Christmas, and Coco's just running around. This podcast studio is like her little lair when I'm in here. She like loves to come up and sit on the chair with me and eat her bone and do all the things. Anyways, so I want to talk about something today that I feel like I've been thinking a lot about, and something that I feel like I've been made aware of. Not made aware of, but just something that I have been thinking, and it's been like just coming up to the surface. Especially considering that for the first time in a while, I have a lot of time on my hands because obviously you guys know I travel a lot with my partner for work. He tours. So we've spent on and off the last, 2 years traveling, like at least 6 months out of the year. So when we do have time off, it can feel like just such a drastic change, because when you're on the road, you're distracted. There's always people around. There's always something to do. There's always somewhere to go. Like there's always something. And then being home, especially now in Nashville versus LA, it's a lot more quiet. And obviously I do this podcast and social media for work, so I spend time doing that. But other than that, I do have much more time on my hands. Now, with that being said, even though I have so much time on my hands, it can feel like sometimes I can't get anything done. And oftentimes it's really hard to like actually push through and do things. And usually once I do them, I enjoy them. But like the anticipation around doing these things stresses me out. And yeah, so what I want to talk about today as a whole is just cell phone addiction and discipline and what we do with our time. And one of the reasons I feel like this is an elephant in the room is because I don't think anyone's proud to admit that they have a phone addiction. And I think, I don't know, like when we say it like that, it can seem so like intense, like, oh, I have a phone addiction. But I think that like generally we could probably all admit, if you're watching this video, you're probably on TikTok, meaning that you have some sort of social media, or you're on Instagram or YouTube. I can assume that most of us could like say, oh yeah, like I'm kind of addicted to my phone, but it's like we don't take it that serious, I guess, because for all the reasons that you guys can assume. I mean, so much of our world is now on social media. Like it's such a huge part of our culture. It's such a huge part of how things work now. Like it's how you shop, it's how you connect. It's so many things. Like it's like it has definitely pressed into so much in every facet of our lives. And especially for people who work in social media or have small businesses, like it's a part, like it's something you have to use. And I think oftentimes, not for everyone, but I think for a lot of people in this generation or in this current time, social media is like kind of a must. Like if you want to be successful in what you're doing, unless you have some degree and you're a nurse or your work doesn't require any sort of social media, if you have any type of business, generally like you have to use social media. So it's kind of one of those things that I feel like, at least for me, I excuse because I'm like, well, it has to be a part of my life because it is, it's tied to the podcast. It's tied to, social media and to the sources of income that I have. And it's obviously also connected and tied to David and what he does. And so it's a big part of our lives naturally. So I think it's something that gets excused, but I think since being back from tour, I've started to see, oh crap, I'm like addicted to my phone. And like, I don't want to be. And, I think my perspective has shifted because I think with a lot of things in life, it's really easy to talk about the things that bring us fear, like, oh, you shouldn't be addicted to your phone because it's doing this and this and this and this to you, which I will list some of those things and talk about some of those things with you guys because I'm kind of discovering and learning them, and it's information that hopefully helps you, so I want to share with you. But even though, yes, I think that's a powerful way to break addiction and or change your ways or change bad habits that you have, I also think the older that I get, the more that I realize an even more powerful perspective for me, which is kind of like the theme of this episode, is it's less about what your bad habits and phone addiction are doing to you and more about what it's taking away from you. So this really opened my eyes because I was listening to this YouTube video the other day, and it was like a neuroscientist, and she was talking to someone, and they were talking about cell phones, and they were talking about, how most of us are addicted to our cell phones. And he was like, what happens to your brain? Like, what are the negative effects of cell phone use? And she was like, I could sit here and talk about all the negative effects of cell phone use on your body and on your brain. And even though those are real things and they are true, there's also a big effect that we're not talking about, which is, what is your phone taking away from you? And what more could you have in your life if you weren't spending so much time on your phone? And that really sparked something in me, because I feel like so oftentimes when we try to instill fear in us and talk about all the negative effects of something, maybe it's easier for me for some reason to kind of ignore those, even though they're bad. It's I've known my whole life that phones take you away from so many things, and that there's so many negative effects to cell phones. You guys know that, and to social media in general. Obviously, everything in moderation. But what I'm trying to say is that really kind of triggered my brain into a different place, because I was like, oh wow, what am I losing out on because of the time that I'm spending on social media or on my phone? And that's when it really shifted my perspective, and that's what made me want to do this episode. Because when I think about the things that social media takes me away from, well, it takes me away from family, friends, spending quality time with people, exercising, cleaning, organizing, hobbies, activities, being outside, spending time with Coco. It takes me away from having to deal with emotions. But yeah, there's just so much good that could come out of my time and energy if I was taking the time that I applied to my phone to something that actually mattered to me, to serving people, to you could name all the things. There's so many good things that we can do with our time. And that's what really started to make me want to not only talk about this, but to actually tackle this and try to deal with this phone addiction that I have. Because when I think about how much healthier of a person I could be, how much more time that I could invest in myself, how much more time I would have to be creative, how much more time I would have to consume things like reading books or, watching documentaries, or just things that are information based, and how much time I could spend serving people and helping people. And even though I want to preface with this, it is so good to serve people and help people, but obviously we have to help and serve ourselves first so we can pour from a full cup and not an empty one. But it's if I were to take all the time that I spend on social media and apply some of it to filling my cup and taking care of myself, I can't imagine the overflow that I would have to pour onto other people. Now, all of that to say, obviously it's a balance. I don't think we can get rid of social media, or that I need to get rid of my phone or get rid of social media. Social media is such a fun thing, and there's so many good things about it. There's so many ways that we connect. There's so much stuff that we can learn. It's not to say that it's bad, but I think that it has to come in true moderation. And I don't think that a lot of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, have the willpower to just do it in moderation. And so I think that there are boundaries and things that we can do to maybe try to tackle this phone addiction together so we can all live like happier, healthier lives, because there's a lot of negative sides of all of this. It's funny because when I first got on TikTok, here's like the backstory. So at the time I was a manager of a shoe store. You guys know that's where I come from. And so I had a ton of employees that worked for me that were like younger, like in high school. At the time I was like 21, I think, before I got TikTok. And it's funny because TikTok had been like a thing for, I think, about a year before I got on it. A year, maybe a year and a half. And I never downloaded TikTok because I was like, oh, like it's for younger kids. Like it's not for me. And also I was busy and I didn't really want to waste my time and whatever. I just never really could get on the TikTok train. And then I remember all the girls that I worked with were like, Nicole, like, please, like you need to get on TikTok. Like it's so fun. Like it's so funny, like telling me all these things about why I should get on TikTok. So I hesitated again, but eventually I cracked and I downloaded a TikTok. Which is so funny because to this day, I'll never forget the first day. And this is embarrassing to admit, but I know you guys have done this before. So I'm just going to say it. The first day I downloaded TikTok, I spent 5 hours scrolling. 5. I remember I like downloaded it and I started watching. And then when I got off of it, I looked and it had been 5 hours. 5 hours of my life. And I don't even want to think about how many hours I've spent on TikTok in the last 5 years of my life. I don't even want to know. I actually don't even want to know. Now, all of that to say, on the other end of things, social media has been a huge blessing for me. Like it's been a pivotal part of so much of my life. Like if I never downloaded TikTok, I would have never met David, because the way he found me was he scrolled on TikTok, saw a video of me, and then DM'd me. I would have never started this podcast. I would have never started making money from this podcast and making money from social media. I would have never had a space and platform to share my faith journey through leaving Mormonism, and I would never have connected with all of you guys and hopefully helped some of you guys and or been helped by other people on social media. Like there's so many advantages to social media. So it's like, I can't knock it and I can't say that it's a bad thing because it's not. But at the same time, it's like anything in excess can be a bad thing. And also like it is extremely addicting, like so extremely addicting. So I want to talk about some things here. I have this video pulled up. This is by ASAP Science. They're on YouTube. ASAP with a capital A, and then Science is all in caps. So ASAP Science on YouTube. And this video is so good. I encourage you guys to go and watch it. I can link it in the notes below. But the title of it is Why Your Phone is Making You Sad. So before we get into it, I want to talk about this. That's one thing I've noticed about being home. Like I've been so excited to be home from tour, and it's been so fun to start getting the house set up and to start doing the podcast and to just kind of get settled and nested into our home in Nashville. But oftentimes I find myself feeling like sad or unmotivated to do things that I love. Like I love doing this podcast, but oftentimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm too tired. I'll make up all these excuses because it is hard to prepare an episode. It is hard to, well, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it's hard, but it takes work to sit down and film and prepare and do all the things I have to for the podcast. I'm so blessed to do this. I'm not saying it's hard. But what I'm saying is it requires effort. It requires effort of me to do it. Same thing with so many other things that I love. Setting up my house, like organizing and setting up rooms, ordering furniture, decorating, all these things. Like it takes me physically doing it. It takes mental energy. And same thing with exercising, reading my Bible, spending time with God, taking Coco to the park, all these things that are really good for me and produce so much good fruit, and also produce dopamine in a healthy way, not a quick release of dopamine, I oftentimes find myself like not wanting to do it. And then when I don't want to do it, I just sit there and I scroll. Because to me, it's like the thought of doing something, it makes me feel like exhausted and tired, and then I don't want to do it. And then when I don't want to do it, instead of sitting there in silence, which would probably in turn make me get up and do it, I just scroll. And then I'm like kind of sad, and then I feel bad about myself because I'm like, oh, I just wasted a whole 30 minutes scrolling when I just said I was going to go do this. Or I get like in a rabbit hole and I just am on TikTok all night or whatever. And then I'm so infatuated and invested in all this stupid drama online or stuff online that doesn't even matter, that has nothing to do with my life. And I'm not focused on the things that are actually in my life. And it's like, what the frick am I doing? Like, what the heck? And so it's kind of made me like feel sad, and it's been harder to do the mundane things that I know actually produce joy when social media and scrolling doesn't like bring me the same kind of joy. Now creating, like I love creating, I love making cooking videos, and I love doing this podcast. Like there are parts of social media that I love, that are fulfilling, that I feel like I have a purpose in. But when there's a difference between like actually working and like putting out content and creating that's authentic to me, not just putting out content. Because you can also get stuck in that rabbit hole of like, I just have to post, I just have to follow this trend, I just have to, no. But when you're really just doing what you authentically love to do and you're sharing it with a purpose or with a goal, like that is fulfilling and that is awesome. But when I'm just mindlessly on social media and mindlessly scrolling, or mindlessly like, oh, I got to post because I need to like try to influence and fit this role of an influencer or a podcaster, like when you start to feel these weird pressures, it's like, it's not good. And it's also taking you out of reality. Like it's taking you out of your present situation and life, and it's leading you into so many other rabbit holes that just are not necessary and are not important. It's like, and so when I find myself doing that, I'm like, why am I sitting here? Like, what am I doing? Like, I have a whole beautiful life surrounding me, beautiful people, beautiful things that I'm so blessed to have, and yet I am just like doing what for what, you know what I mean? And so, and again, I'm not trying to be dramatic. Like there's nothing wrong with scrolling on TikTok for 15 minutes because it's fun and it's entertaining. Like there's nothing wrong with using social media as a source of entertainment in your life. Like I think it's healthy to sit down and watch a movie, or sit down and be able to scroll for 10 or 15 minutes and just have fun, you know, but it's like, it has to be capped. It has to be capped, because once it turns into an hour or 2 hours, or then it turns into you being invested in all this drama and going watching this video and going doing this and going doing that. And then once it turns into, oh, you're not getting enough sleep because you're on your phone, or, oh, you're not waking up early enough to go to that workout class because you spent too long on your phone, or you're not having genuine conversations with people because you're just on your phone. Like when it starts taking away from your life, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's what I'm realizing is like, oh, actually it's taking things away from me that I don't want to be taken away from me. I actually want to have those things in my life. I want to use my time and my energy towards things that matter. And before we get into this video, I want to touch on my next point, which is like, that's one thing that I hate about social media, is that there's this constant pressure to like be and do what everyone's doing. Like so much overconsumption all the time. Like when you spend time sitting and scrolling on social media, you're like, I want to be an influencer too. I want to post that too. Oh, I'm going to make that video because that video did good for them. Like there's such this like, there's so much consumption. Like there's just so much that you're absorbing that it's so hard to remain authentic to who you really are, because you're being so influenced by social media, by influencers, you know? And so it's like, we're not having genuine, unique thoughts or desires. It's like, where are your desires coming from? Where is what matters to you coming from? Is it coming from all of this influence that you're seeing? And again, not to say that you can't take some of what you see on social media and that you won't adopt it into your own belief system, or that it can't inspire you. Like, you can totally be inspired from influencers or from things on social media. But at the same time, if you're not having any alone time, if you're not having any time to really process your thoughts, and also like spend time doing hobbies or activities or trying to craft a talent, how are you ever supposed to know that what you're wanting or desiring or trying to be is genuine? It's like, we can't all be the same, and we're not all the same, but then we want to all be the same because it's like all we see. And so it's like, that is another thing that made me realize, like, oh, Nicole, you need to like take a step back from all this, because it's so easy for me to see other podcasts and other people online and be like, oh, like, I'll just do what they're doing. I want to be like them. Like, getting so easily influenced by that stuff. And then I'm realizing, like, I'm not having genuine passion. This is like an influence passion that's not even my own. And then when you're doing something that you don't even actually care about, or that's not even authentic to you, it's like it's not fulfilling at all. Like, it's just there's so much overconsumption. It's like, we're never just spending time not having products or thoughts or opinions thrown at us all the time. And so it's like, what if we all took a step back and like lived in our own world, present in our day-to-day life? Like, I wonder how much more not only peaceful we would be, but just how much more authentic we would all feel. And not that there's anything wrong with being like someone else or liking what someone else does, but it's just like, I just had that thought, like, when's the last time I had a genuine thought about, like, you know, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's like, it's such a rabbit hole to talk about all this, but these are all things that I've been thinking about and processing. Okay, so this video, I want to talk about this video. This video is called Why Your Phone is Making You Sad. And it's by ASAP Science. So the first little key section I want to talk about is called delay discount. Delay discounting is the tendency to devalue rewards that are delayed in time in favor of more immediate rewards. Crazy. So literally what we're all doing, right? When you look at your phone and you go to your TikTok or your Instagram and you check your follower count, you check your DMs, you check how many likes you're getting, whatever, it's an instant hit of dopamine. So delay discounting is crazy because it's literally making you devalue rewards that take effort. So like an example of that would be exercise. Like, you do release dopamine when you exercise, but you actually have to put in the work. You have to like put in the work as you're exercising, and then you get the reward of that dopamine hit, right? Same thing with like, I don't know, going on a walk, or maybe completing a book, like reading a chapter in a book, or doing a task that you can complete, whatever that is, coloring a picture. It's so crazy because you guys know this and we've talked about this before, but like when you think about the things that so things that release dopamine, like exercising, you have to put in the work, and it's hard initially. It's uncomfortable initially. But then at the end of the workout, it brings this dopamine and this joy and this peace, and you feel good, right? Same thing when you open up your Bible and you read and you spend time with God. It's like, it's hard to do it, and it takes work and it takes focus. But then once you do it, you feel peace, you feel joy. Same thing with anything in life. Anything in life that's really good for you is going to be uncomfortable most of the time. Growth is uncomfortable. Doing things that are hard are uncomfortable, but they usually bring long-term reward and also a longer hit of feeling good. Now, things like getting on your phone or eating, you know, a pizza and ice cream, like immediately in the moment, it's going to feel really good. But after you do it, you feel like crap. So it's like, yeah, you can scroll on social media for 2 hours, and it's going to feel good in the moment. But then when you're done, you're going to feel like crap. Your head's going to hurt. You're going to have a headache. Your back is going to be all like janked up from like bending your head down and watching. And you're going to feel bad about wasting time. You're going to feel unproductive, whatever. So it's like, it's crazy because our phones are literally making us devalue the rewards that are coming in time and favoring the more immediate rewards. But that's what's so sad about it, is because like truly the best type of feeling comes from things that take time. Like we want this quick fix to everything. And that's like, it's so much bigger than we realize, but that's ruining so much of the nature of our lives. The mundane things in life are so much harder to do because of delayed discounting, which is crazy when you think about it. So the first thing is the delayed discounting. So this video just said that delayed discounting can lead to anhedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure of any kind. So our phones are literally making us feel less pleasure when we do things that are actually good for us. It's like we're kind of becoming numb to like pleasure and or dopamine that we should be feeling from things that are hard, like working out or whatever it is. That's crazy. And I mean, you guys have heard a lot of these stats, but it's saying in this study that people who spend more than 7 hours on their phone, or at least 7 hours a day, are much more likely to experience depression than people who don't, which makes sense. And anxiety. There's some crazy statistics that I found about phone addiction. The average person is checking their phone around 110 times a day. 80% of smartphone users checking their phone within 15 minutes of waking up. 64% of adults keeping their phone on them at all times, and a significant portion admitting to using their phones during work meetings while talking to friends. It's really crazy. Like, we don't think about how much we use our phones until you think about not having your phone. And so that's why, I mean, I'll get into all of that, but I want to do like a phone cleanse and a social media cleanse. Eventually, I want to start with first limiting it. But all of that to say, it's just crazy when we really think about it. Like, we're just addicted to these things. Like, this has nothing to do with like our actual reality in front of us. But like, we're just so, like, look at me literally sitting here with my phone, like right at my hip. And I went through a stage where I didn't get on my phone the first hour that I woke up. Like, that was something I practiced for a while, but I haven't been doing that. I literally wake up and I get on my phone and I'm like, why do I do that? It's the worst. It's literally the worst. Screen use releases dopamine in the brain, which can negatively affect impulse control. Dr. Lorenz says studies have shown screen time affects the frontal cortex of the brain, similar to the effect of cocaine. Similar to drugs, screen time sets off a pleasure/reward cycle that can have a negative impact on your life. So it's like our phones are actually affecting the developmental parts, or phone use is literally affecting the way that our frontal cortex like is developing, which is crazy. And you know the craziest part about phones? We don't even know like the real long-term effects, because social media hasn't even been a thing for long enough. Like, I can't even imagine in 100 years what studies are going to show for people who spend more than whatever amount of time on their phone. Like, that's crazy. I know my chiropractor, he was saying that, like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like screen back. And like, naturally the architect of our body is slowly changing because of the way that we go like this all the time. That's crazy. Like, it's just crazy when you really talk about this, because again, I think we all naturally like know a lot of these things and can assume a lot of these things, yet none of us make any changes. And then for me, anytime I've ever even made a change in my social media use or in my phone use, it's so hard to stick to it. I always find myself going back to it. And then I'm like, why do I do that? And so I'm looking for a long-term change in this. And it's something that I just want to spark the conversation about, because maybe it's something that we can all do together, and maybe it can inspire you, because we don't want to let our phones or our bad habits steal our lives. Like, we only have so much time on this earth, and to spend all of it on our phones, again, not that in moderation / there's a way to use it in a purposeful, good way that can be unique and true to yourself and fulfill your passions or your goals. But we've got to find boundaries within it. You know, it's like, or we're all going to seriously like have so many bad things happen. And yeah, there's just so many negative effects of it all. And it's just crazy to talk about and think about. But I also want to talk about, this really spoke to me. Amen Alex, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He is, he like has a podcast and leads church at his house, and also has like a church that he leads. And he's awesome. I love him. He's great. He like kind of started in the Christian influencer space, and then he like separated himself from all of that, and now just has a podcast, and he has kids and a wife, and me and David really like him, and he's a great preacher. We really like him. But I was watching his video about discipline, which is a whole nother side of this conversation, is discipline. But I feel like that ties so directly into social media and our phones. And this video, sorry guys, brief intermission. I had some family stuff come up. Anyways, okay, so Amen Alex, he has this video called How to Be Disciplined. And that's something I've really been working on in my relationship with God. And that's something that's a whole nother conversation that I want to have with you guys. But since being back home, I have felt really convicted and realized how many idols I have in my life and how many things I put before God, one of them being my phone. And that's been really convicting for me, and also inspiring, because I want to spend time with God, because I know that that's what leads to so much joy and peace. And after everything that God has done for me, like, all I want is to honor him with my time as well. And I've realized that I haven't been doing that the way that I want to. So that's a whole nother conversation. But the phone is a whole part of that. So I watched this video from Amen Alex. It's called How to Be Disciplined. And something he said that really, really spoke to me was, the reason why we are so undisciplined is because we have too much time on our hands. And that really struck me for a lot of reasons, but one of them being, when I was in Arizona and I was working at the shoe store, I had no time. I was so stressed out all the time because I worked 40-hour weeks, 50-hour weeks, sometimes 60-hour weeks. I had the podcast, which at that time I was editing myself, which took me an additional like 10 hours a week. On top of that, I was in a long distance relationship with David. So any free time that I did have, I was traveling to see him, and I was living by myself. So I was doing all my housing chores and grocery shopping and whatever. All of that to say, I felt like I had no time, and I was stressed all the time. And one of my prayers that I prayed was, God, like, I can't handle all this. Like, something has to be taken off my plate. And now I'm in an immensely blessed situation where I don't have to work a full-time job. I get to do this as my job, which is so much less time consuming, so much more freeing. Not only that, but I have, now I obviously live with David, which is a whole nother conversation. But all of that to say, I have so much more time. And that's one of the things I prayed for, and so much less stress. But it's sad because even though I have more time, I find myself still not having the time to do the things that matter. And that's not good. That's not right. It's like, if you are blessed to have time, whether that's 2 extra hours a day or 3 extra hours a day or whatever it may be, we need to honor ourselves, honor our lives, and honor God with that time if we believe in God, for anyone who's listening, if you don't. But like, we're constantly feeling like we don't have the time because we're wasting our time doing things that don't matter. And I don't want you guys to get it twisted. Like, yes, it's so good to have balance. There's nothing wrong with spending time having fun or watching movies or having entertainment or scrolling. Like, I don't want you guys to think it's so black and white. Like, I'm not ever going to be someone who doesn't treat myself and doesn't watch movies and spend time on my phone. Like, I always want to have those things because they're fun parts of life. But if it's taking away from what actually matters in my life and what I actually claim to love and identify with, that's a problem. And so that was very convicting for me and inspiring to me, seeing what Eamon Alex said about it. And then it made me think, okay, so, obviously he says here, the reason why we are so undisciplined is because we have too much time on our hands. And also, I know I kind of jumped over some of these key moments in this other YouTube video, ASAP Science. But I encourage you guys to go and watch that video. It's called Why Your Phone is Making You Sad. And it talks about the actual science behind what your phone is doing to you. Now, I'm no expert and I don't just want to copy and steal all of their content and put it on this podcast. I prefer you guys to go and listen to it there. So I'm not going to go over everything, but there is a lot of key moments and key points in this video that you guys should really go and watch if you want to know the science behind what is happening to your brain and your body from social media. Now, we are going to jump back to their video at the end because it does talk about some of the ways that we can change our habits and or get less addicted to our phones. But first, I want to talk about this Eamon Alex video. So obviously I just said the reason why we're so undisciplined is because we have too much time on our hands. So that is true. So what's the answer to having too much time on our hands? And this is my whole big perspective thing I talked about at the beginning. It's less about limiting and taking away the things that aren't good for you. And it's more about filling your time with things that are good for you. So like, instead of obsessing and trying so hard to quit looking at your phone or break your social media addiction or break your bad habits, try to set yourself up for success by filling your time and filling your schedule with things that are good. And so that changed my perspective. So it's like, okay, and I've noticed this when I have my day set up and I have my day structured. I have a workout scheduled. I have a time I have scheduled that I'm going to spend with God. I have errands that I have to run. I have a to-do list. I have things set in stone and set in place. I often find myself not on my phone and not wasting time and not falling into bad habits, but it's because I'm filling up my time with things that actually matter. And so I think that's a huge way and a huge hack that I'm going to start using that I should have been implementing forever ago to really try to lean into what matters and what I actually love in life. So that could be serving others. That could be spending time with family and friends. That could be working on a goal or a dream. That could be going in, being in the sun, exercising, walking, spending time with God, spending time with someone you love, like just doing things, good things, serving people, whatever it looks like. And so I think filling our time with the right things is so important and so huge and something I'm really going to be attempting to do. Now, I want to talk about what it says in the end of the video for ASAP Science, because it talks about how oftentimes we're really unsuccessful when we try to break social media addictions, because usually what we try to do is we try to go cold turkey. And even though I think that is a beautiful thing, and I think that it could be very cleansing to do for me, right now, I think I'm going to attempt to do these things because I do want a long-term change. And until I feel called to do otherwise, I think that this is something that is not only more realistic, but also that maybe will help me create those healthy habits with social media more long-term and or bad habits. So what it says at the end of the video. So the first one is chronological binding, and it's a self-binding technique that limits consumption of dopamine inducing activities to certain times or milestones. The goal is to reduce consumption by limiting the time we spend on activities like eating unhealthy food, playing video games, watching TV, or being on our phones. So this is something that's super easy to do. I don't know what app it's called, but I used to actually have this. It was an app that set time limits on my phone for social media. So like I would do an hour a day on TikTok, an hour a day on Instagram, where it actually limited my ability to spend as much time just scrolling for no reason. So when I did that, what will happen is like when you hit that hour limit or whatever it may be, it pops up and will make you type in a passcode to continue scrolling and whatever. But the bad thing is last time I did it, I knew my own password. So this time I think I need to find a way to have someone else know my password so I can't just bypass it anytime I want to keep scrolling. So that was one of the ways they found to be really effective in breaking social media addiction. Okay, and so again, I want you guys to go and watch this video, but it's talking about chronological binding, and it's talking about a study that they did on rats, and that the rat that had access to cocaine at any time, like, used it all the time, and it was so bad. But the rat that only had access to cocaine 1 hour per day found a way to steadily use it like the same amount long term. So all of that saying, that's talking about chronological binding. So that's something I'm going to attempt to do that I think might help. Okay, another thing that they said you can do is physical binding. So like if there's a specific app that you feel like you need to take a break from, which I've actually done this with TikTok before, you can sign out of the app and delete the app, and it won't actually delete your account. It will just delete the app short term. And you can even change your password and have someone else have your password so you're not able to sign back in until you're ready to. So that's something else that they said you can do. Another technique they said is like turning off your phone at 9 p.m. and putting it in like a drawer or something and not being able to have access to it. That is one thing I really do want to attempt to do, is to, which I've done it in the past, not have my phone sleep with me. I'm going to get an alarm clock. I need to not rely on my phone to wake me up, because if you're not sleeping with your phone, it means you're not scrolling on your phone when you're supposed to be going to bed. And it also means that you're not waking up and getting that instant hit of dopamine, which will then make it harder to experience joy throughout the day through doing actual hard activities that bring that dopamine naturally. So it prevents you from sitting up and scrolling, and it also prevents you from doing it before you go to sleep. So that's something that I really do want to attempt to do, and something that I think would be a healthy practice long term. Oh, okay. Another idea that they said is you can only check high dopamine related apps on your laptop, so it's not on your phone. So you have to be a lot more intentional. You can't just like carry your laptop around anywhere. You actually have to take it with you. Or you can't carry around your laptop everywhere like your phone. So it would limit you getting on as much. And then they also said making your phone mean less, so you could turn it to like grayscale so it's not as colorful or exciting for your brain. And that's called categorical binding. Yeah. And like I said, that video is great. You guys should go and watch that. But I think some of the practices that I'm going to attempt to do is, number one, the time limit, because I obviously do use my phone for work. So it's something that I still have to use. But if I have a time limit, it will not only help me to be accountable to not wasting time on my phone, but it'll also help me to be a lot more intentional about whatever I am creating or putting out there or doing, because I know that I don't have all the time in the world to do it, and I have to choose what actually matters most. And I'm also going to be attempting to use like a posting app for my podcast clips, which may help me as well. The alarm clock thing I'm going to try. So there's a couple things I'm going to try. But yeah, I mean, this was fun. I wanted to just talk to you guys and have like an open conversation about this, because I've been feeling so much more sad and less motivated to do the things that I love, even though when I do them, I love them and it's so awesome. And I think part of that is just that I have a phone addiction. I think that we all have, and I really want to be better about it, because I want to have a healthier and happier life. And I want to take a lot of that time that I'm using and apply it to things that matter more to me. Not to say that I am not going to ever spend time on my phone. I just think I want to find a better balance, and I'm going to attempt to do so. And I hope that that inspires you guys to do the same. And yeah, I think it all ties back to my faith as well, and just honoring God and honoring myself and doing what matters. And as I'm on the edge of turning 26, I'm really just more deeply contemplating my life and contemplating what I do with my time, how I spend my time, where I put my energy, and just realizing how much it all matters and how important it is to do what you love and be around people you love, and to not waste your life away on your phone, because it's not real life. Our phones are not real. It's not real life. So I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for listening. And yeah, I hope you guys liked today's episode. And if you feel like you are addicted to your phone and you feel any guilt or shame around you, I just want to remind you that you're not alone. Like, these are real things that we all go through, and that a lot of us go through that we maybe don't talk about because it's kind of embarrassing and can feel like a failure, or not feel like just feel like something that you failed at or whatever it may be. But I just want to remind you that you're not the only one, and we're all trying to figure it out. So yeah, I love you guys so much. I'll link both of those YouTube videos down below, and I will talk to you guys next week.